Oh, hey! I'm glad you're here. I've said that in a previous episode that growing up in my dad's video store was how I learned about the world and related to people. And it still is. But I would never say that because I watched Warriors of the Year 2072 that I know anything about Italian cinema or Italian culture. However, I'm always open to learning more, and by watching films, we hopefully expose ourselves to other humans' experiences and storytelling. I never want to dissuade someone from watching a film. If anything, I hope to inspire others to watch everything, to dig deeper, and to be open. It doesn't matter if you're watching them alone or with your posse. Huh? Way to ruin the heartfelt sentiment, Dirk? Okay. Well, then let's just get right to it. The film is Posse, the guest is Mark Wanner, and this is VHS Presents New Releases and Late Returns. Hello, and welcome to VHS Presents New Releases and Late Returns. I'm your host, Dirk Marshall, and if you're new to the podcast, this is our more conversational format where we champion things that are currently bringing us joy in the world of entertainment before I look back at perhaps a lesser-seen gem. I'm joined by Mark Wanner. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Did I say that right, Wanner?
You did. You might be one of the first people I've ever met that's gotten it right
Yes.
without me having to tell it.
Okay. Some people say Wanner? Wanner?
They do, and I'm generally too nice to correct
I hear
them
you.
because they usually do it when we're in the middle of recording.
Right. Perfect. Yes. Well, thank you for being here. You are the _shape14 on Twitter, and I don't know your letterboxed, but I believe you are on there.
Yeah, I'm just Mark Wanner on Letterboxd. I don't think I have a username.
Okay, perfect. How are things going for you?
Things are going pretty well. We've got some unseasonably cold, well, I guess it's seasonal, but unusually cold weather here in Texas. We got some snow, some icy rain. The vehicles are covered in ice. The roads are kind of deserted. It's very uncharacteristic for this part of the country, but it's given me an excuse to just stay in and watch stuff all day.
Nice. Well, that's great. It's good to catch up on things. But let's just jump right into it. Let's get into new releases, and we start with print. Is there anything you're currently enjoying from the world of books and such?
I'm trying to. I'm a very slow reader and I tend to jump between things.
Same.
The last book I started was The Nolan Variations, which is a book on, you guessed it, Christopher Nolan. Only about 40 pages into it so far, so I can't say much. I'm mostly just learning about his upbringing and his history, but I mean, it explains a lot about why he is the way he is, that's for sure.
That's good. Is it written like in regular time, or is it backwards to front, or any kind of Nolan tricks?
To my knowledge, he hasn't done any time tricks yet.
Nice.
That actually would be the perfect way to write a biography of Nolan. I'm kind of disappointed now that he didn't take
Right.
that route. Nolan's probably disappointed too.
That's great. I just have one thing that I'm reading, and it is Planet Wax. It's the sci-fi fantasy soundtrack book that
Oh my
was.
God, that looks awesome.
It's really amazing. The artwork is fantastic. It's by Aaron Lipton and Jeff Spearglass. It's got awesome illustrations. It's very easy to read, quick to pick up, and the first copies of it came with a 7-inch of Invaders from Mars.
That is cool.
Yeah, I love stuff like this. When I saw it and the guy said, "I only have one of these left," I was like, "Give it here. I can't leave it. I'll think about it for the rest of time." So I love it. They put out a couple other books, the Blood on Black Wax, which is the horror soundtrack book. Same
I
thing.
think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, very easy to pick up, super fun to just check out. Just a couple paragraphs on each release, mostly. So easy in, easy out, easy to pick up and jump out of to something else. Like you said, you kind of bounce around if you're reading things. I'm the same
Yeah.
way. That brings us to video games. I don't know if you play video games. So are you a game playing person? That's the terminology.
I'm an occasional gamer. I bought a PS4. I almost said PS2. Jeez, I didn't even work today and I'm already out of it. I bought a PS4 a couple years ago with the intention of doing a lot more gaming than I do. I played games nonstop, but I kind of keep forgetting that I have it. I'm more into just watching movies or TV shows, but every now and then something will come out that interests me. Like I'm big on Resident Evil, so I hopped
Cool.
on Village when it came out, but I don't know, I kind of took a break from that and I still need to go back and finish it. So I guess that would be my most current game.
Nice. And did you see the new Resident Evil movie?
Yes, I did.
I don't know if you talked about it on a specific podcast.
I haven't talked about that one on a podcast. No.
Okay, great. What did you think?
I enjoyed it.
I
That
did
movie
too.
was. Oh, you saw it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that it was dumb as hell, cheap as hell, but fun as hell.
Yeah, me too. Actually, that your attitude towards that movie is a great example of one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, because I enjoy all your previous appearances on podcasts
Oh, thank
because
you.
you're far less critical and seem to be more on the celebratory side of movies, if that makes sense.
To an annoying extent on my part.
I like
I
it.
wish there were more movies that I dislike, because all these movies that I like, I think of all the movies I like and give positive reviews to, and I'm wondering, am I even a human being? Like, when I dislike something, it's proof that I'm human and I actually have differing
Mm,
opinions in my head, and it makes me feel a little better about myself, even if it comes at the expense of someone else. But fortunately, those people don't know about my existence or give a shit
yeah.
about me. So
Well, there you go. Yeah, I thought the Resident Evil, the new one, I forget what it's called, Raccoon City or something like that.
welcome to Raccoon City.
Yeah. I mean, it was a little light on raccoons, but other than that, it was like it was a very fun movie.
It was
You
very
know.
big on small towns with police stations the size of a large cities.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that was fun. Oh man. So for games, I've been playing Rainbow Six Extraction, which is new, where you're breaking into a place that's been infested with aliens. And the interesting thing is, as you gain XP points, if you get captured, you lose experience points, and you have to go back in and extract your characters that you lose, or you can't play them. So there's kind of a fun twist on a standard shooter game, and it kind of stresses me out a little bit. It's very sort of arcadey, so there's not a lot of storytelling. But tonight I'm starting Dying Light 2, and I'm very excited about that.
Okay, you'll have to explain Dying Light to me, because I'm not enough. I know the name, but I'm not enough of a
Oh,
gamer that I know what it's about.
me neither. I didn't play the first one at all. I just was looking on YouTube, and my friend JL and I that play games, so I was like, should we get Dying Light 2? And then I started kind of checking more stuff about it, and I was like, it seems kind of fun. Like you make decisions that affect the how the world develops in ways. So if you choose like different factions, then they grow stronger than other ones. And I think there's like parkour and zombies. I'm not exactly sure
Oh my god, that
100%, but
that sounds like a blast, actually.
yeah, I think it's going to be pretty fun. I'm pretty excited about it. That brings us on to music. I know that in your job you listen to a lot of podcasts, but does music take up any of that time?
Music takes up some time every now and then. I don't really listen to music like most people do. I think I've just conditioned myself over the years to mixes and shuffles. If I ever try to listen to an album by a single artist, I get tired of it after a
Mm,
few songs. So I'm like, all right, let's try and switch it up. I'm not good at keeping up with the latest
no.
album releases of my favorite artists. Taylor Swift, yes, I'm a Swiftie, has released 3 albums in the middle of the pandemic, and I haven't listened to any of them all the way through.
And it seems like this would be the time you'd have all the time to listen to 3 Taylor Swift albums.
Yeah, but there are so many podcasts out there. Podcasts tend to make the job go by a lot more quickly than
Same.
music, but every now and then you just get in the mood for music, and that helps you more than podcasts. But see, at least if there's anything I'm big on right now, I don't know. My big artists right now are Taylor Swift, In This Moment, The Pretty Reckless.
Oh, I don't know them.
I just went from pop to metal
Okay,
without
cool.
any middle ground there. I don't even understand my taste in music,
Oh,
so
that's
I
great.
don't know how I can even explain my taste in music. Mostly what I do is if I find a new artist I like, I'll add 1 or 2 of their albums to my music queue on Amazon, and then I'll just shuffle all my music, and every now and then I'll stumble upon something new, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that is kind of the fun thing about having so much music on your phone or whatever is if you hit random, you'll hear things from like 10 to 15 years ago, it seems like, where you're like, oh, I forgot I even had that.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing about me actually, is for the longest time in my life I was pretty much only interested in classic rock, so
Oh,
from
yeah.
mainly from the 60s all the way to maybe the early 90s, but lately in the past 10 years I've started to get more into pop and more metal. I would consider myself a metalhead because I'm
Mm.
kind of picky about the metal I listen to. There's a lot more variety to what I listen to nowadays than when I was growing up, which kind of sucks because the way I think about it, I don't have any use for pop music at my age. That would have been so much better to get into when I was a kid and going to school dances, and it was cool to be into the popular music. Now I'm just some creepy older guy listening to Taylor Swift.
Yeah, well, I have a 8-year-old daughter, so I end up hearing the pop music and everything, and so that I'm just the creepy old dad that apparently listens to
Well,
that
you
music.
have an excuse though.
That's true, that's true. She's not always around, which is, like when she's at school or whatnot. I just got to make sure those are the times to just play other things, not that. For me, for music, my wife Sarah, she got a new stand for our records, which were previously mixed in with books and things. And so now, right next to our record player is like four big crates on a metal stand. And so we've just been playing our records that were sitting and just gathering dust forever. And I used to DJ, so I have thousands of records. And so going through and finding stuff and be like, oh my gosh, I forgot I even had this, and then putting it on. And has been super fun. So there's everything from 90s trip hop to Aphex Twin albums to white label remixes, which are like illegal mixes of pop songs, so they don't have to pay royalties for these things. And I have like so many of those. So it's been really fun to dig through all of that.
That's a good feeling when you find an excuse to go back through your records.
Yeah, yeah. It makes moving them so many times to actually pay off. Otherwise, you're just the person that has the heaviest boxes of things between DVDs, Blu-rays, and records, which is all stuff most people are like, why do you own any of that?
Exactly.
Stream it. But anyway, that brings us to television. Is there anything episodic that you're watching lately?
All right. Well, hey, here's where I can actually talk about some
Okay,
stuff,
we got to
which
it.
is weird because normally I'm not a big TV guy. I just rewatch my old favorites, and it takes a lot to get me into new shows. For some reason, I have just been crushing a lot of TV shows lately. So last week, I binged in a couple days that new Netflix thriller comedy, The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window,
Yes.
which was a very easy watch because I love those kind of those trashy airplane thrillers like The
Yes.
Girl in the Train or A Simple Favor.
Hmm.
And it is such a spot on spoof of them that you can treat it like a serious mystery show, but every now and then something so ridiculous will happen either in the foreground or the background, and it just colors everything around it
Yeah.
as like just ridiculously silly. And I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Great mystery, great comedy.
Her wine pours are my favorite because she's
Oh, did you watch it too?
I've only seen the first two episodes.
Oh, God.
But every time she pours a glass, I'm like, I should probably get some wine. It's like the fullest glass you could ever have. She even bounced her phone on top of it. It's amazing.
She has to take a sip out of it
Yes.
before she picks it up, and
Yeah.
she's got the bowls full of wine corks that are
Yeah.
overflowing out of the bowl more and more as the series goes along.
That's hilarious. One year, my wife was like, we should save all of our wine corks and we'll do like a garland thing. I think she saw, I don't know, this was like 15 years ago or more. I was like, okay, yeah, that's a great idea. And then we ended up with just a disgusting amount of wine corks that we had to throw away because we were just like, one, it's very hard to get a needle through a wine cork. And two, this just shows how much wine you drink. Like, this is a terrible idea. There's a reason recycling comes every week. So,
That's the classy version of the frat house that keeps every beer can
yeah.
on their bookshelf.
Yeah, big beer can pyramid.
Yeah.
Same thing.
One more show I'll talk about. I'm 16 years late on this one at least,
Oh,
but I was just browsing Netflix the other day, came across the IT Crowd. And
oh,
I'm like, you know
nice.
what? I'm going to give this a shot finally. People have been raving about it for years. I watched half of an episode once, and I have never been able to stop quoting Richard Iowata going, "Hello, IT." So I decided to see what that show's about, and that show is so funny.
It's
It
so
is
good.
as good as everyone said it was.
Yeah. There's a show called Puffin Rock, which is a cartoon about puffins, and it's narrated by not Richard, but the other guy. What's his
Oh,
name?
Chris O'Dowd?
Yes. A couple years ago, when my daughter was obsessed with this, I kept thinking about the IT Crowd the whole time she's watching this very calm kid show. I was like, I just want to watch IT Crowd when you go to bed. That's all I can think about that I'm getting from this. Yeah, that show's really funny.
Did you watch the IT Crowd when you went to bed?
Yeah, I did.
Good for you. Good
Yeah,
for you.
had to get it in there. The only TV show we've recently seen was Yellow Jackets. Did you happen to catch Yellow Jackets?
I did not. Dramas are a lot harder for me to get into. I don't know why, but I'll watch a few episodes of a drama and I'll just want to watch something else. And so I'll move on to that and I'll never come back to them.
Yeah, one thing I think that helps with this one is that it flips back and forth through time. So perhaps as a Nolan fan, you might find that a little interesting because we're not stuck following one narrative. And the other thing is that it does have some horror sort of survival stuff going on, so it's less just a drama. And also
Yeah, I
the
heard that.
cast is great.
I think it was Colors of the Dark. One of them put that as their number one horror thing of the year.
Oh wow.
Right? Did that come out last year or this year?
I think this year. Yeah.
I guess she said that it was going to be her favorite thing of this year, no matter what. I don't know. Regardless, I heard someone mention it on a podcast say it was
Yeah.
great, and it definitely piqued my interest. Also, Christina Ricci, Melanie Linsky, Juliette Lewis, these are all names that make you want to watch something.
Yeah. Oh, so it was probably Rebecca. I think
Yes.
she said it. You know, it might have started last year before New Year's, and maybe that was the thing. I remember hearing exactly what you're talking about. So yeah, yeah,
Okay, yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'd say definitely check it out. There's gonna be another season, so that's the
Good
only
for them.
yeah. So look forward to that. Which brings us to movies.
Oh boy.
Here we go. This is it.
Have I got movies to talk
Yes,
about?
great. Where do you want to start?
Okay. Well, my New Year's resolution, I'm trying to watch more first time watches as opposed to rewatches because I have a bad habit of wasting too much time deciding what I want to watch between all my streaming services and everything I own on physical. And after that much time, I'll just be like, okay, you got to watch something. And I'll just settle into something I've seen a million times. And this year, I'm saying, no, I'm forcing myself to watch more new stuff. And that's paid off because at the beginning of the week or the end of last week, I watched Bringing Up Baby, which has taken over my head. It is just like, occupied my life. No matter what I watched, that's always at the forefront of my mind because I just adored that movie.
What movie is this? I'm
Uh,
thinking of Baby, the dinosaur movie from the 80s, and I can't get that out of my head. What is Bringing Up Baby?
it's definitely not that.
Okay.
Nothing like that. Although it does kind of involve a dinosaur. So it's from 1938, I think. It's
Okay.
Howard Hawks, Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn. Cary Grant is a virgin paleontologist who's gonna get married to someone he works with, but she seems like she's gonna be a little controlling and not be the best person to get married to. So while he's out on a work outing, meeting with someone, he runs into Katharine Hepburn
Mm.
and he keeps running into her, and through these various circumstances she just keeps getting him involved in these outrageous situations. Before he knows it, she's got him escorting her and a pet leopard
Oh.
out to her aunt's country estate. And before he knows it, this dinosaur skeleton he's working on, he's got the last bone for it, and the dog at the estate takes the bone and buries it.
Oh.
And on top of all that, you've just got Katharine Hepburn, who, by the way, this was my first Katharine Hepburn movie. I've lived a long life. I've seen a handful of classic movies, but I've never seen anything with her, even though she's maybe the greatest actress of all time, which might be true. She might be the greatest actress of all time. And I am obsessed with her now. But the funny thing is, she's normally known for playing these confident, smart, independent women. And in this, she plays a fast talking airhead who you should hate. The comparison that I have when I was watching it, she's like Zach Galifianakis in Due Date. She is just
Okay.
someone who just drops into your life like a nuclear bomb and proceeds to make decisions that make it spiral more and more out of control. But because she is so innocent, there's an innocence to her that makes her so likable. So you never she never drives you crazy like those other characters do. And it's just a romantic comedy between the two of them. And basically, she wants to try and get him to like her like a schoolgirl. She's like, if I spend all this time with him and just keep him with me and annoy him, maybe I can trick him into liking me. And oh my God, I figured I was going to like it. I like Howard Hawks. I was not prepared for that movie to just charm me the way it did. I cannot wait for there to be a Criterion sale because I am definitely buying that.
I thought you were about to say, I can't wait for the sequel. And I was like, whoa, set like 90 years later.
If they made a 90-year later sequel, it could be awful. I'd still watch it. They did that for The Graduate.
Yeah.
I'm sure if they did that for Bringing Up Baby, I would be there on day one, and I would probably never watch it again, but I would appreciate their moxie.
Right. So much moxie. I've got one, Nightmare Alley. Did you happen to see Nightmare Alley?
Oh, did I? I saw it twice.
The new one.
The new one.
Okay, great.
I saw it in color, and then I went back to watch it in black and white.
How was it in black and white?
Oh, it's great. It works equally well in both formats, so I don't really have a preferred one. But ironically, the moment that works best in black and white is also the moment where I was kind of missing the color the most. But either way, it's a fantastic movie. I actually took someone to see the black and white version with me who hadn't seen it before, and they loved it, and they actually could not picture it in color.
Whoa. Yeah, I want to see it in black and white for sure.
I'm hoping they put that on the physical release whenever that comes out.
And not make it two separate Blu-rays.
They wouldn't do that. Nightmare Alley's not enough of a cash cow to do
Yeah,
that.
that's true. That's true. I don't think it did very well.
No, because that fucking web slinger just like kicked it right
That's
out of the
right.
theater. It just walked into theaters. Hey guys, how's it going? And then 1 week later, he swings in and just like knocks it out the door as he's
Yeah.
swinging through.
Oh, what's next for you?
Another one of my first time watches, I heard it mentioned briefly, like the briefest of mentions on the latest Action for Everyone.
Okay.
They mentioned The Quick and the Dead from Sam Raimi.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
was like, that's a movie that I'm aware of, but I never ever think to myself, I need to watch that. So I'm going to fix that. And that movie was awesome.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, I saw it in the theater.
Oh my God. I am jealous. That must have been a hell of a watch in the theater.
It was great. I saw Evil Dead 2 first, then I saw Evil Dead, and then after that, Sam Raimi was a name I knew, and I was obsessed with it. So when he started to get these shots at big movies, Hudsucker Proxy, he did that, right?
He co wrote that, but the
Okay.
Coens directed.
That's right. And then when he got The Quick and the Dead, I mean, I was there opening day, and I didn't really care that Leo was in it. I love Gene Hackman, Sharon Stone, but man, it played so well, and I loved all his crazy cinematography stuff. Even though you're sitting in a theater watching this on the big screen, you're still thinking, but he's the Evil Dead guy. He did this down and dirty back in the day. What year did that come out? 93?
That was 95.
95. So Army of Darkness had already played, which I also saw in the theater opening weekend with one
Oh
other
my
person
God.
in the theater. And when Ash jumped up and the chainsaw latched onto his arm, I jumped up and screamed like, yeah, because I was so excited and pumped. And the one other person in the theater turned around and looked at me like, what's your problem? And I was like, why are you even here if that's not the coolest thing you've ever seen? But
Oh my God.
anyway,
Those are the best times at the movies when
yeah.
you are so into a movie, you will do a out loud reaction and you
Yes.
don't care what anyone else thinks or you just can't help yourself.
Can't help it.
Apparently, Sharon Stone handpicked Raimi to direct that because she was a fan of his work. And she said she didn't love Army of Darkness, but she
Sure.
still like appreciated his style, that she wanted to give him a shot at it. And that just makes Sharon Stone so much cooler in my book.
Agreed. Completely. You enjoyed Quick and the Dead?
Yeah, I had a blast with it. I definitely had some of those out loud reactions when I was watching it here by myself. That's pretty rare when you react to a movie while
Yeah.
you're watching it alone. But there are definitely a couple of instances of violence
Mhm.
where he does something so fucking insane. I can't believe he gets away with
Yep.
it in that studio system.
Yeah, it's really good. Next, I have Urban Legends from 1998.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, this is one I just never saw it. And I was talking to my wife, and she's like, you never saw. She was a Jared Leto fan back in the 90s. And so she, of course, saw this movie at the theater. And I was like, nope, totally missed it. And she's like, why? And I think I missed a wide swath of like teen slashers in the late 90s because I was kind of done being a teen. And so I just kind of moved on. So I missed them. So now coming back to it, I got to see Urban Legend. And then we watched Urban Legend Final Cut. And then
Ooh.
I showed her Urban Legend Bloody Mary, and
Oh no.
yeah, and she like was like, "This is terrible," and I was like, "I know this is what happens to our beloved horror movies is they keep making sequels until you just won't watch them anymore." But we made it through all three, and the first one is really great.
The first one, that movie grew on me over. I didn't like it when I first saw it, but
Mm.
then Scream Factory put out that really cool edition. I'm like, fine, I'll buy it and watch it again. And I do love that movie,
Yeah.
although I gotta say, like, I'm a huge dog lover, and
Mm.
that has to have one of the most upsetting dog deaths I've ever seen. You
Yeah.
don't see it, you just see the aftermath, but the implication is so upsetting that it kind of kept me away from
Mm.
revisiting it for a while. And I simultaneously love the killer in that movie, but also want them to suffer for what they did to that dog.
Right. That makes sense.
Urban Legend's awesome. As someone who went to film school, I appreciate just how wrong Urban Legend's Final Cut gets film school,
Oh my
but
gosh, yeah.
that movie is not great.
No, especially because the first film has this awesome late 90s cinematography. There's lots of above shots with the rain cascading down on top of a
Oh boy,
car.
Jamie Blanks. He knows what he's doing. I'm a huge Valentine fan
Yeah,
too.
same. I even like Storm Warning.
I just, for the longest time, I wanted to watch that, but I couldn't find that to stream anywhere. I
Hmm.
guess they recently added it to Vudu, so I'm going to be renting that soon.
It's really enjoyable for what it is, for sure. I mean, if you like his style, it's definitely there. And I agree. Yeah, Valentine is probably my favorite of his films, but
Oh, mine too.
yeah.
That's one of my favorite of that 90s slasher era.
Yeah, same. I just have three really quick. I saw She Shoots Straight from 1990. It's a Hong Kong action film with Sammo Hung, Joyce Gudensky, and Tony Leung. Lots of shooting, lots of amazing gunplay. It's really hard to get a hold of. I was like, I gotta get this. The DVDs were like $180 or something crazy online, but I ended up tracking one down from another continent, and it's totally
Good for
worth
you.
watching. Yeah, I hope it comes out. It's also called Lethal Lady in some circles, so if you can find Lethal Lady or She Shoots Straight, I highly recommend it. And then Curse of the Undead from 1959. It's a horror western about a mysterious illness besieging a small town, and then a man shows up who no one knows who he is, but he's kind of a vampire. Black and white, very fun, very moody. And then the last one is Raw Force. Vinegar Syndrome put this out. Thanks to Brady at Solid Six Podcast for reminding me of this. It's a movie I saw at my dad's video store back in the day. It's a movie that has zombie ninjas, lots of nudity, a karate island. I mean, it's got basically everything you want from a 1982 film, except for maybe good acting and things like that. But super fun, schlocky for sure. But Raw Force is very entertaining.
Of those last three you mentioned, that's the only one I've heard of before. And I
Great.
remember hearing that that one was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. I'm pretty forgiving with the quality and content for a lot of movies. I spent time just in my dad's video store watching whatever, and sometimes just one scene in the third act. I'd be like, well, this is incredible. Like, I'm so glad I sat through the rest of it. And then I would show my friends, and I'd sometimes see their eyes glaze over, and I'd be like, but wait. And you get to the one scene, and they'd be, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Slowly, you can warm people over, but it really comes down to those specific awesome shots of either someone being beheaded or whatever you see.
That's the good stuff.
Right. And with that, we'll take our late return to 1993's Posse, directed by Mario Van Peebles. Now, Mark, I was going to do a mini game here, and it was going to involve songs by Insane Clown Posse, but after about 1 minute, I couldn't do it. So,
Oh
so,
boy.
so no
Wait,
mini game.
wait, why couldn't you do it?
I just couldn't make it through their music. I was
You don't have to listen to the music. Were you just going to do song names?
I was sort of, but then I ended up clicking on a couple, and then I was just like, you know what? I subject people to enough cinema stuff. I shouldn't have to be doing this with Insane Clown Posse.
For the rec, I don't blame you
Yeah.
because, Insane Clown Posse. Blah.
Yeah.
I don't blame. It sounds like I'm blaming you. I don't blame you at all. Quite frankly, you listen to more Insane Clown Posse than I ever would have just by 1 minute.
Yeah, and it changed me in a way. The synopsis for this film is in 1898 Cuba, 5 buffalo soldiers find a gold cache, desert, and return to America where they help defend a black town from the KKK, all while trying to avoid capture by lawmen and military authorities alike. The film stars Mario Van Peebles, Melvin Van Peebles, Billy Zane, Stephen Baldwin, Big Daddy Kane, Tone Loc, Pam Grier, Tom Lister Jr., Isaac Hayes, Paul Bartel, and Nipsey Russell. I'm almost out of oxygen. Whew. Cinematographer is Peter Menzies Jr. People recognize his work from Die Hard with a Vengeance, Shooter, Expendables 3, Laura Croft, Tomb Raider, and Kangaroo Jack.
Jesus.
Yeah. This is 2 years after Mario Van Peebles directed New Jack City. It's the same year as he was in Gunman with Christopher Lambert and Full Eclipse with Bruce Payne, and 3 years before Solo, which I'd like to mention as another awesome action masterpiece. Any first thoughts?
Yeah, I looked up Mario Van Peebles on Letterboxd because the only movie I know a handful of his movies. I thought he was a more well-known director than he turned out to be because on Letterboxd, his second most watched movie is the USS Indianapolis movie he did with Nick Cage,
Yes.
which looked awful.
Oh, you didn't see it?
I never saw it. I do love Nick Cage, but I never got around to that one because there was a lot of bad CG in that trailer.
It's supposed to be the story that Quint tells in Jaws.
Yeah, it's supposed to be that.
It's not very good.
Not very good, but to my knowledge, I liked Mario Van Peebles. The only film of his I'd seen was New Jack City, but New Jack City's awesome.
I love New Jack City.
New Jack City's incredible. Oh, Badass is the other movie that I was thinking of his that has a really good reputation. I never saw it, but I've always wanted to. And so going into this, I was like, all right, Mario Van Peebles, I guess this is just one of his lesser known ones. And then I look up his filmography. I'm like, oh, outside of 3 movies, it's pretty much all just lesser known ones. He
Yes.
did not have the career that I thought he did, which is, well, after watching this, I don't know if that's a shame or not. Probably watch Badass so I can elevate my opinion of him again. Because I did have a strong opinion after New Jack City, but I was not particularly fond of Posse. I love certain things about it, and you
Yeah,
can tell it's a great story.
sure.
And he's very passionate about it. Everyone involved in it seems to be very passionate about it.
Yes.
But I just found this filmmaking very sloppy, and I could never really get a handle on any of the characters outside of Mario Van Peebles, who I didn't think was particularly good as the badass silent outlaw.
Yeah, I think that that is the problem when somebody's the star and the director, perhaps. I don't know how much a hand he had in everything, say the casting, but it is interesting that this is Big Daddy Kane and Tone Loc's really going for the awards kind of acting. They're rappers.
Which is strange because Tone Loc is dispatched pretty quickly in this thing. He
Yeah.
doesn't last that long.
Yeah, I thought he was pretty good for what he was. Stephen Baldwin, he and Billy Zane, I feel like are in a different film altogether. All the dudes that get the gold and take off, except for Stephen Baldwin, are pretty low energy. And then you have Billy Zane, who's still in Demon Knight mode, it seems like. And Stephen Baldwin, who's just like a cackling wild man. It's so weird.
Oh man. Well, I feel like they all actually are high energy, but
Mm,
that's the problem because I end up not being able to tell any of the characters apart because they all kind of have the same personality.
yeah.
And it's like they'll say certain names. I'm like, wait, who is that? They all act the same.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's like every character is the same person, and it kind of prevents you from getting further involved in their story.
Yeah. And also, it feels like Mario Van Peebles really wanted to make the Western. It's a Western. It's like,
Yeah.
it's going to be a black Western. And I saw this in the theater. Yes, this opened
Jesus
in
Christ.
theaters. And I was super excited to go. I like Mario Van Peebles from,
It looks like it would have been a big deal, like, because it
but
was,
it wasn't. That's the weirdest part. Even when asking you to do this, I was like, well, maybe Mark's, he's already seen Posse. And then I asked her to like, no. And I was like, I don't know what people have or haven't seen. It's basically what I'm learning through the podcast. Is like the things that I have seen that I ask people about, and they're like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. We've all been watching all of these movies. And I'm like, oh, I haven't seen all of those. It's not that
I
I've
do
seen
appreciate
everything.
it though, because I think this is the first podcast I've done on a movie that I haven't seen.
Yeah,
Every other podcast I've been on have been on movies that I've seen at least once and I'm
sure.
more often than not pretty familiar with. So this was a nice change of pace.
Oh, cool. Good. Yeah, I just get a feeling for something and I just have to go for it. And so when you said that you'd be down to come on, I was like, I'm going to think about it for a second. And then I was like, for some reason, it's not like every time you're on a podcast, you're like, I love Tone Loc. But I was like, this is the one. So here we are.
I don't know much about Tone Loc. I'm not really knowledgeable on early rap music.
Hmm.
My knowledge of Tone Loc comes from him appearing in Ace Ventura and like one scene in Heat, but he's got a screen presence.
Wasn't he in Blank Check or one of those kid movies?
I
No.
never saw Blank Check, so I don't know. He probably was. It
I
seems like
don't
he was
know.
in a lot of things in the mid
I
90s.
just remember him being either a bodyguard or something for like a Richie Rich type character in a movie. He had like sunglasses and a suit.
Oh god, if he was in Richie Rich, that would have been awesome.
Oh god. Yeah, I'm just gonna go back and the account on Twitter that puts Paddington Bear into scenes. Have you seen that?
I love that.
Yeah, I'll just go do that with Tone Loc in 90s films with kids. This Western, it's like Mario had, okay, so there's this part, and then the guys go, there's like a snowy Western scene, there's mountain
Which got
Western
me
scenes.
excited because
Yes.
I love snow in movies. It's like
Yes.
one of my favorite settings, especially in westerns.
Yeah,
And so I'm like, oh, are we gonna get a snowy western? And like 1 minute later,
that's
no
it.
more snow.
Yeah, it's like,
This thing is paced like a Michael Bay movie.
yes, it's true. It clips along, and then they get to the small towns, the two towns, because it's like, I think the gold is enough of a movie, but then they're like, no, then they got to go defend this town from the KKK and all these bad dudes. And all right, sure, that's a great final act situation, but it really comes down to just the Gatling gun coming back is like all they want to see. And then the problem that I think that we're talking about is the way that it's shot and edited is really a disservice to the story and the subject matter, if that makes sense. Even the gunplay, you mentioned Quick and the Dead, where I love the gunplay in that movie. And in this movie, I feel like it's cut around so weirdly. I'm like, what am I seeing?
It's very Oliver Stone in its experimental approach, which I feel like there are certain filmmakers who could make this work, but I don't know if Mario Van Peebles at that point was experienced enough to make
Mm.
that work. Also, I don't remember New Jack City having anything at all like this in it. So this must have been like he wanted to try something completely different, which I can appreciate. And
Yeah.
I love big swings. And
Mm.
this is
Same.
definitely a filmmaker taking a swing. I saw that it was Gramercy Pictures,
Yeah.
Polygram, and they
Yeah.
even had working title. And to my knowledge, these are all very filmmaker friendly companies. And so I'm guessing this was another company just giving him a big shot after the success of New Jack City. And you can tell this is definitely like a filmmaker with just coming in with big energy, just ready to do something new. And it doesn't fully work.
Yeah, I feel you're 100% correct. Because there's another thing that people should know about this movie. Through flashbacks, we learn that his town was attacked and burnt down, and he was lynched, and all this terrible stuff happened. So he's going and hunting down the people that were a part of this lynching when he was a kid. He melts the gold bars down and makes bullets, and that's what he's shooting the people that were a part of
Which
this.
I somehow missed because the movie moves too quickly. Like they have him melt gold down
Yeah,
into bars, and then out of nowhere he mentions bullets.
six
And
bullets, yeah.
where did that come from?
Yeah. And then he goes around killing these people. So if this movie took place in the 70s, it already has Pam Grier and other characters that were from the films then and even the black exploitation movement. This would be a movie that everybody talked about. They'd be like, oh, yeah, the Western with the predominantly all African American cast. Quentin Tarantino would have borrowed shots from it for Django. This would have been something amazing, but it comes out in 1993 when it doesn't land. And there are some Westerns coming out, but it just wasn't. It's really interesting.
Yeah, but it was a good time for it to come out too, because I don't know how many Westerns at that point had tackled Black history
Right.
or
Yeah.
how many of them had Black leads or
Hmm.
predominantly Black casts. But to my knowledge, I can't think of any. So I'm thinking of this one as being the first one, which is a big deal. And it's also coming out among the time that revisionist Westerns are coming out. I think
Sure.
this is 93, right?
Yep.
So Unforgiven would have been the best picture winner
That's
right before this.
yeah.
So people would have definitely been into like a different kind of Western.
Hmm.
But I think this one might have been a little too different from what they were looking for,
Yeah, I do think that the rap song at the end of this movie is better than
which
the
is
the
awesome.
Unforgiven rap song. That one was not good.
Yeah. I mean, Clint Eastwood shouldn't rap.
It would have been so, Clint Eastwood
That's
and
why the
Gene
ending song
Hackman.
of Gran Torino, I'm a lot more okay with because after hearing him rap in Unforgiven, I'm like, at least he's just trying to sing a different style now.
You wouldn't even. It's just this gravelly tone where you're like, "Is that a human voice? I don't understand what is." He just keeps telling us to get off his lawn.
And Morgan Freeman was like, come on, Clint, this is embarrassing.
Just he's his hype man, but he's just super calm the whole time. It's like anti hype man.
I will say that there are moments in this movie that did really amp me up. The one that I can think of right now is when Mario's just walking through that first town and that
Mm,
heavy percussion music kicks in and he's just like shooting everyone around
yeah.
town, walking up to that one guy right before he kills him. That was awesome. That's a moment I feel like the energy he was trying to capture, he really did capture. There were a couple other moments where I was just like, that's awesome. At the end, he at one point says, when you get to hell, tell him Jesse Lee sent you.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good
And
part.
I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I want more moments like this in the movie.
And the sex scene, of course, that was probably.
Uh, Jesus Christ.
I don't think a person can direct and star in a movie and have their own sex scene in it and have it not feel like so gratuitously like ridiculous.
It felt like a softcore Cinemax scene.
Yes, it's like, okay, we get it.
Like, I'm all for sexuality in movies, but that point it felt like we were at 2 a.m. on Cinemax.
Yeah, it's it's really something. Oh man.
I'd just like to point out that two white guys dogging on a black Western
No,
when
yes.
it just turned Black History Month
Oh no.
does not look great.
Okay.
I do want people to know we did try to schedule this episode for January, and it probably would have looked better if it
Oh
came out then.
man. Okay. Well, now that you mentioned that, I feel terrible. I just
The
want
movie's great. We love it.
I just wanted to talk about a 1993 Mario Van Peebles movie, but it's not like I'm saying don't watch it. If anything, I'm saying go watch Posse.
There's a lot of cool stuff in the movie, and I'm pretty sure this is going to get a resurgence at some point. One of the labels will
Right.
put this out at some. This is 100% a shout select title.
Oh, for sure.
One of the labels will put this out at some point, maybe Kino Lorber,
Yeah.
and it will get a resurgence, and people will probably like it. And you know what? Good for the. I don't ever want people to dislike movies.
No, no, me neither. In fact, even though I saw this in the theater, I forgot that it existed until I was listening to a podcast that the rapper MC Search from Third Base does, and it's all about Big Daddy Kane's career.
Oh, interesting.
I know nothing about this. And so he was in the Madonna Sex book. He did all these amazing songs with incredible artists that I didn't even know about this period. And then when he mentions getting into film and stuff, he mentions this movie, and I was like, "Oh yeah, Posse exists." It's very unique in what it is and when it came out. So I was like, I'll put that on the back burner. And then this episode came up. So
I
that's
was happy to watch it though, because I had enough fun moments with it to be like, yeah, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm glad I watched this.
Yeah.
He doesn't work in the movie,
right.
but I did enjoy the hell out of Billy Zane in this.
Yeah, Billy Zane's great.
Anytime Billy Zane is going over the top, it's always a good time.
Yeah, I agree. And anytime someone's acting with their dad, I always love that kind of stuff too. So Melvin Van Peebles being in the role. I guess he wrote a song, his first released song in like 12 or 20 years, I forget.
I saw that.
Yeah, for this movie.
I forgot to look up which song was that, but I'm assuming it played in the movie. Do you know what part it played during?
I don't remember. I wish I did exactly. But I'm sure you can find it on YouTube.
Yeah, there's something really charming about a father and son working
Mhm.
together, especially for a project like this where you can tell they're both really passionate about it.
Yeah.
He loves his dad and he gave his dad some great moments on screen, and that warmed my heart.
Yeah, I love that stuff. Well, that brings us to final thoughts. Anything else you want to tag on to Posse?
Production designer, Catherine Hardwicke.
What?
That was definitely a credit that stood out to me.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
even see that.
Twilight's Catherine Hardwicke apparently got her start as a production designer and worked on Posse. I forgot to look up and see what else she'd done production
Right.
design for, but I thought that was cool.
I remember watching Twilight and thinking, this kind of looks like Posse.
I mean, some of those actors are giving very Billy Zane performances.
Yes, yeah. They just kept going, a little more Zane. Little zanier.
Oh, God. I watched the movie this morning, and I guess I've already forgotten some of this because I wrote when Zane shows back up in New Orleans. I think that's where
Yes.
they are. When he shows up in New Orleans, I thought that was pretty awesome. He made a great entrance,
Mhm.
but I don't even remember what about that scene struck me anymore.
It's just the entrance because they go out a window and then we're no longer in New Orleans. That's the movie's just like, that's it.
10 minutes earlier, they left Cuba,
Yes.
and somehow Billy Zane is already there on their tail. Again, the movie moves.
Yeah.
There were a lot of random shots of a train just riding over the camera,
Yes.
specifically around the time we got the snowy sequences.
Hmm.
I remember we got a shot of a train, then they're in the snow. Another shot of a train, they're not in the snow anymore.
Right.
Another shot of a train. What the hell is going on?
It's the passing of time through trains.
I did like that one scene when they're swimming and we get
Oh.
that random shot of Tiny Lister's ass.
Yeah, and they talk about how small Stephen Baldwin's penis is.
No, wait, I thought they were talking about how small Lister's is.
Oh,
Because
is
he's
that-
just standing there making a bunch of comments about his dick,
Ah.
and then Lister just lunges at him.
I was really uncomfortable, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Anytime there's a bunch of
comes-
people bathing together, I'm like, I don't
I
want
mean, at
this.
least it's an equal opportunity nudity
Sure.
in this movie. There's plenty of male nudity to offset the Cinemax female nudity.
That's true. That's a plus. Add another star to your letterbox review.
Oh god, what else? There are definitely a couple other things. There is one scene where they hang a Native American woman, and I actually think it's very powerful and effective scene until they actually hang her, because you see her just in the corner of the frame
Mm.
and she doesn't really drop down. It's like her head just tilts to the side. And so it looks like they didn't even try anything with that scene. And you can see the filmmaking behind that, and it dulled the impact of an
Mm.
otherwise powerful scene. Again, there are a lot of great moments in this that you see how this could have been a much
Yes.
better movie. But
hmm
at the end of the day, it's too sloppy.
Yeah. Also, it feels like a sincere Western that is saying something about race and history.
Oh yeah, and especially at this time when there were so few westerns doing that, it was
Yeah.
definitely, I applaud the attempt.
And then it hits at the end, and then we get the rap song. And I just think the thing that made New Jack City, I think, work so well is that it exists in that time as hip hop culture is emerging from where it's originating to getting to small towns like where I lived, where I was just like, this is incredible. What is happening? And it's, existing in filmmaking. And so I just wonder if this had been more of like a hip hop Western. I mean, it sounds terrible to even say it, but I just was like, maybe that would have worked. I don't know. All that we're left with, like you said, there's some great moments, but the connective tissue of everything just isn't gelling. That
Yeah,
makes sense?
absolutely. I mean, we've had a couple of recent westerns with heavy hip hop soundtracks
Yeah.
like Django Unchained, and we just had Those That Wish Me Dead on Netflix, and people seem to love those.
What was that one? Because I think I get that
Yep.
confused with Angelina Jolie as a firefighter or whatever.
No, no, I got them mixed up. What was the one that just came out on Netflix called then?
Power of the Dog?
No, no, there was another black western, and
Oh,
it said Those. I think the title began with Those.
but Angelina Jolie was the firefighting one, right?
Yeah, that was Those Who Wish Me Dead.
Okay.
I like that one.
Yeah.
The western, that was a big hit on Netflix,
Mm,
so maybe if they had taken more of that approach, it would have hit back then.
yeah. I also had down that Lister punches a horse in the movie, so
Oh my god, I love that.
yeah. So if you're a horse listening, don't watch this. It's very traumatic for you, probably.
Oh man, now I'm trying to think, because there was so much that happened in that movie, but I've already forgotten some. It's kind of how I felt when I first saw Six Underground.
Oh, okay.
So much happens in that movie that by the time it was over, I didn't remember any of it.
Yeah.
But I loved Six Underground, so I did go back to watch it again. The more I watch that, the more I pick up on. I imagine if you like Posse, the more times you watch it, the more you'll pick up on.
Yeah, when whoever puts out that new Blu-ray, we'll see.
I'm calling Shout Select. That's a Shout Select title.
Okay, perfect. I'll reach out to Mr. and Mrs. Shout Select. Or who runs, I don't know what that is.
You can call them Ken and Kayla.
Okay, perfect.
They don't mind going by their first name.
Great. Well, that's it for me. Any final thoughts for Posse?
No, I think I've covered everything.
All right, perfect. So that's it for Posse on new releases and late returns. Thank you, Mark Wanner, for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for forcing me to watch something that I never, ever probably would have watched. I don't think I ever would have heard of Posse
Okay,
if you hadn't
great.
suggested it.
Until somebody is like, let's watch all of Tone Loc's cinema oeuvre. Um,
Welcome back to Tone It Down, a Tone Loc podcast.
Do you have any upcoming podcasts or anything that you could promote, or?
Nothing that has been publicly announced.
Okay,
yet,
great.
I don't think so. I don't want to spill the beans if they haven't. I'm scheduled to be on a handful, all of which I'm really excited about.
Great. I love it. I can't wait to hear them. Once again, you're on Twitter.
Capital THE underscore capital SHAPE 14. I don't know why I don't just use a variation on my name for my Twitter handle, because I want to be cool and nerdy.
Okay, perfect. But don't look up Cool and Nerdy. That's a different account. As always, I'm Dirk Marshall, and this has been VHS Presents New Releases and Late Returns.